Haunted Hill Farms Soul Sucker Witch. This is very similar to the Soul Sucker that they produced last year. There's not too much going on in the box. It is a pretty big build though. And this animatronic is super cool because it is fog compatible. Now they went ahead and sent me some fog liquid as well as a new fog machine, which we'll check out too. But the real hype is in this prop right here. This has a pull-out tray, and I haven't watched any other videos on this, so this is my first time seeing any of it. First thing we see in here is leg foam. Looks like it at least. There's some pull in here. Don't quite know what we're looking at. And there's two of these. They're not snap locks or anything. And then the hand that holds the book. This is the witch's hand. There is a wire going through it. So maybe the book lights up. This is what it looks like. It's an interesting material. Here is the other side of it. Don't know what that is, but we got Velcro, the cord, and then it's a circular snap lock. But the hand's got a lot of detail on it. Now let's see what else is in here. I don't know if this is supposed to be connected or not, so I'm just gonna pull it out anyway. This is what one of the arms looks like. The other arm has a different type of connector on this. And a lot of this is twist tied in, so I'm gonna cut it. This is the little kid that gets held up by the prop. His face is super creepy, and you can see where the fog shoots out of. There is a very long tube coming out the bottom of him, as well as another pole and a wire here as well. I think the wire is for an LED. That looks to be one right there, so you can really see the fog glow at night. This is probably his pants. There's a hip loop with a bunch of Velcro over it. Here is 4 leg pulls, one of which holding the control box. This prop also does take batteries. I think that's for the IR sensor, though that looks really weird, especially for being a techie prop. This is not an IR sensor. This is actually the fog connector wire. That's what it is. 2 more poles with foam over them. There's a lot of those. Some type of back mold. That's how it goes up here. A bag with 2 shoes and another hand. This is what the hand looks like, Velcro on it. One of the shoes just fell out back in the box. There it is. Also Velcro on this with a hole that goes all the way through it. Other shoe looks the exact same. Here is the main witch. Her face is just covered in bubble wrap, and it's also still stuck down here on something. But I'm gonna cut this off. There is the face. There is no eyes underneath this. That's supposed to be over there. I checked. And there is the fan in the mouth as well. This is such a creepy prop. I don't ever get witch animatronics, so this is like one of the few that I've ever gotten, which is really interesting. In this bag, I'm actually gonna open in a second because there's some stuff that you don't see on a typical prop in here. But let's look at this mechanism. There is so many twist ties that I've been cutting on and off camera. It is unreal. Here's one of those. All of the white foam on here does come off. It's just protecting it during shipping. There is a motor, another connector here. I don't really know what I'm looking at. There's a lot going on, including this spring, and there is a wire coming out of this. Also in here, it says remove cable after assembly, so I'm not gonna cut this quite yet. Never seen that on a prop either. This looks like the little kid's hip piece that's gonna connect to the loop. Everything's labeled. I love how Hill Farm labels stuff. It actually makes sense, unlike these other companies. The back and the base, and then the front. In this bag, let's see what we got. The fog connector mount, which we'll be showing in this video. This is the piece, and it has an adapter on here depending on the fog machine you have, so you could just use this one or with the extender piece on there. That cable goes into the control box, and then we have the snap lock removal tool instructions, which is this right here. It's very common sense. And then their little flip through book, which I've shown in some other videos. They also have Christmas and Thanksgiving stuff on here, which is pretty cool. So they also sent me a fog machine with fog fluid, which we're gonna check out right now as well. And this box has the fog machine. The other one's gonna have some fog fluid. So this has a remote in there, as well as that same booklet again, and then some other stuff, how to use it. I already know how to use fog machines. I've had some in the past. And then here it is now. They have a cool skeleton on theirs, which I like. It's not just a basic boring fog machine. They added some detail to it. So you unscrew his head, and that's where the liquid goes. On the back, this connector is gonna go into here. Now we don't need that extension piece, so it'll connect just like that. And this shows how high your fluid tank is if you've never had a fog machine before. And then the other last box they sent is supposed to be the fog fluid, is what I'm assuming here. Mainly bubble wrap, but here it is. They got Haunted Hill Farm on this too, that's awesome. A tiny little jug of fog fluid. This is the mess I've done during the unboxing. I'm gonna lay it all out now. But just to clarify, this fog machine and fog liquid is sold separate if you do want to get this animatronic. Also, the link is in the description if you want to buy them. Here's an overview of all the parts. We're doing a quick build, starting with the base. It has letters A and B connected right there. Standing it up, they both went in super easily. On the back, we have labeled C and D. That is these poles right here. Also snap locks. There's two more poles that go above this, E with the control box. This will face inward, and then on the other side, F. After that, the hip piece goes on. Also putting that spring back to where it was. Then this upper piece, I don't know what it's called, but it's labeled I, and it goes onto the hip mechanism. The pole hanging down, labeled J, is gonna connect up here. Remember not to cut the zip tie yet. They're actually holding that up so the build's easier, and it's gonna lean this back, and that spring keeps popping out. After getting that pole on, cutting the zip tie, and it will jump back forward, which makes the spring not pop off anymore. On the front side now, we have the legs. They're gonna slide these poles in like that. They go from the outside in, and on the bottom, this is gonna create a bending effect, which connects in just like that. Same thing over here. Spinning it around to the back side again. The spring once again fell off, but the back blister is color coded, and that goes on like this to hold the shape of the prop. This is what the inside of the witch looks like. Has a wire coming out and it's labeled K. That's gonna go over in snap lock. I don't know how well I'm gonna be able to show this. Putting the arm up the sleeve and snap lock it in. Same thing on this side. Then connecting the hands, starting with the one without a book. There's Velcro on the wrist. And for the side with the book now, there is a cord that has to get connected up. And then there's Velcro to put on after that. Moving on to the boy now, both the shoes go over, and there's those slots that connect on the bottom. Above this is more snap lock poles. Next is these pants. It doesn't matter which way they go on. There is Velcro on both sides. Before attaching any of that, I'm going to put this hip piece on for him. And then connect the hip loop up here. Moving back down to the shoes. There's only Velcro on the back side, and it looks just like that. Here is the upper piece of the boy, and before connecting this on, you want to tuck the fog tube down his leg. Now they recommend this one, which looks like it might have a little bit of extra fabric on the front here by the pant leg on his shoe. So I'm going to tuck this wire and that fog hose down. Snap locking this in. That went in super easily. Fixing the clothes up here a little bit. And you can see how this prop looks so far, which is super cool. And then this wire is gonna go along the bottom, up the dress, and then we'll get to this fog hose in a second for the fog machine. On the back side, I'm gonna start with all these wires that have come down and through the prop. That's U. S is the bigger connector. Make sure you put it on the right direction. This one is W or M depending on the way you face it. V coming from the kid. And there's one more here, which goes to the sleeve, connected to the book, labeled T. And then this fog adapter connector thing is gonna plug in right here. I won't be using the batteries today, so I'm also plugging in the power adapter that is included with this prop. It has a foot pad jack, a speaker jack, and the modes on here are on, foot pad, or human. I'm gonna have the volume all the way up for this with mine on the on mode motion sensor. Moving to the fog machine, this connector piece goes in like that, as showed in the beginning of the video. Unscrewing the cap and pouring the fog juice in. Even with the funnel, I spilt some there. Don't know how that happened. But I'm not only gonna fill it about halfway, screwing the top piece back on, and the last step we have before the demo is the fog tube. This just pushes on with friction and it like clicks into place, and then you squeeze these clamps, hook it over the opening of the fog unit, and let go. Now I'm gonna plug this in the wall and we're gonna get on to the demo.
I'll suck your soul.